Excuse me! Taxi!
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Calling in right now is Congressman Guy Reschenthaler from the great state of Pennsylvania. And, well, he's on so many committees. He's a Navy man besides. And how long have you been a congressman?
John, coming into 8 years. So I'm running for my 5th term. And at the end of that, hopefully if I'm elected, it'll be 10 years. So it's been a while. But before then, I was in the state Senate in Pennsylvania. I was a district judge before then. And then I was a Navy JAG. So I prosecuted terrorists in Iraq. I defended Navy SEALs against the Obama administration.
That's one of my favorite shows, JAG.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lie. It's one of the big motivating factors of me wanting to be a JAG officer. That and A Few Good Men. I mean, I'm from that generation, so.
That is wonderful. Now, tell us, I was watching JAG and NCIS. I mean, the Navy really has, great programs.
Oh, we have, between that, Top Gun, we have a lot of recruitment just from media and Hollywood. I'm not going to lie about that.
And did you see who just died, the famous actor?
I did. I saw that. I hope he's okay. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. Norris, and he was a law enforcement guy, I guess.
He was.
Now, tell us about Pennsylvania, and tell us about when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep. Are you thinking about Iran?
I am, to the extent if I'm worried about lone wolf terror attacks within the United States, that concerns me. But in terms of this war, John, I think the president took action that needed to be taken. We got to remember that Iran has been at war against us since the 70s, since the Ayatollah came in. And when I was prosecuting terrorists in Iraq, I can tell you that would have been 2009, and I went back briefly in 2010. But during that time, a lot of our casualties were coming from Shia militia groups that were directly backed by the Iranians. So they've been killing Americans now for decades. So it's time that we took definitive action and try to remove that regime in place that calls for death to America and calls us the great Satan, and of course Israel the little Satan. But to get back to the question, I do worry about the lone wolf attacks here in the United States, so we've got to stay vigilant. And then in terms of the electoral impact, we've got to do something about oil prices heading into the midterms and to make sure we keep this economy pumping and moving forward and as strong as it should be.
Absolutely true. And what I'm worried about Iran is, well, they're running out of missiles, they're running out of everything, and if there's still a lot of people that are a little bit crazy, that they're going to be doing a little bit of terrorism.
Well, exactly, and that's what they'll revert to. They'll revert back to terrorism, to more guerrilla-style tactics in Iran. The other issue we have is that we are so lethal, the IDF and the American military is so lethal, that as soon as somebody comes in to take command, we neutralize them. So we're running out of people to negotiate with, and what's happening is the IRGC, their military, is really decentralizing, and then it's really hard to control because as you have these regional areas within the IRGC, these commanders are not making decisions altogether. They're making them independently, and it takes on much more of a flavor of terrorism, acts of desperation, etc.
Well, President Trump is doing the right thing, in my belief, trying to get rid of terrorism, and because Iran funded Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and the Hamas in Gaza. And it looks like we're between Israel and America, we're on the verge of getting rid of all this stuff.
We can have huge multi-generational changes in the Middle East if we make sure that we have a pro-Western regime in Iran. And you're right. Often you look at the Middle East and you say Iran is the head of the octopus, and all the arms of the octopus, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, in the West Bank, Hezbollah in Lebanon, they're funding all these terrorist organizations. Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism, without a doubt. And to think that they could have developed a nuclear weapon or had a nuclear weapon to hit Israel, Europe, and the United States is unthinkable. So I applaud the president's actions to make sure that we neutralize this threat. I just hope that when we have a regime change, it is a pro-Western regime. And you see a lot now because even the other Arab nations are lining up against Iran and trying to make sure that there's a more friendly regime that takes place. Because remember, Iran, the Persians and the Arabs have always been at odds with each other. So this thought that they've always been working in cahoots, now that you have the Arab states like Saudi Arabia, the other Gulf states lining up against Iran, it's actually a good thing for boding well for a regime change that's more pro-Western in Iran itself.
I agree with you 110%. And the Ayatollahs and that regime that just killed people for no reason at all. They just kept killing people, and the people would protest. They would kill the protesters, and the protesters had no guns.
Well,
all the people from the entire world that say, "Let's give up your guns." Never give up your guns.
Well, great point on that, John. And it's always what tyrants do first, is they tell you give up your guns for safety, then they turn around and everybody who opposes the regime, they take out. But just getting back to Iran, what's really heartbreaking is this 19-year-old wrestler that was just tortured and executed, what was it, yesterday or the day before? The Iranians are doing anything they can to hold on to power, and anybody that they view as a threat or a charismatic leader, they're killing them.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this Friday night, and let's talk again on Sunday.
Sounds good, John. Always good to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.